The wildfires that have been devastating Northern California have continued on until when we're filming this video. It's still going, and we're going to reveal some of the numbers associated with these fires, numbers of people killed and missing, acres destroyed and all of that. And they're difficult to grasp because we don't expect, in Northern California, you expect, they're going to get a hold of it. But it's been getting worse day by day. And it's especially difficult because it is still ongoing. And those numbers are almost certainly going to go up because things like searching for people, that isn't even really happening yet because they're still trying to contain the fire itself. So we're gonna show you video and we're gonna show you pictures. But first, just a quick update. So far, as of filming time, nearly 170,000 acres have burned. More than 500 people are missing in one county alone, and I've read that more than 100 are missing in other counties. 21 people have already died in the fires. More than 50,000 acres are burning in just those two counties. Actually, I have family living in Sonoma County. And at least 1,500 homes have been destroyed, although that number is, like the others, premature because these are areas that have been destroyed. Some of them it's difficult to know exactly how many because the damage has been so thorough. And you'll see in the video, maybe we can start to roll it as we talk, and that it's not, you don't have the burned frames of buildings. You don't have some damage to buildings. You have complete destruction of buildings with little or nothing left in most cases.
Oh my God, it looks like a nuke hit it. Even with a nuke, some things would still be left standing. So some updates right before we came on air. It's now, it was 1,500 homes. It's now over 2,000 buildings that have been absolutely burned to the ground. It is now 560 people missing. And if you're wondering how in the world are people dying, I mean, shouldn't we know a fire is coming well before it does? Well, in this case, no, because there's huge winds and they are spreading the embers throughout the area and it's jumping to places they didn't expect. And so some of the stories of how folks died in the fire is absolutely heartbreaking. So here, I'll tell you two of them right now. One was a 28-year-old guy in a wheelchair, and he couldn't get out. And so they jumped to his building. Another case, they were fine, but to give you a sense of the speed, so they were in their home, they were fine. Next thing you know, there's the fires jumped to their backyard, and they're like, Jesus, what the hell's going on? They get their 11-month-old kid out, they get the wife, the husband, and the brother out, and then they said within 5 minutes it was gone. It was, and the whole
house
thing,
was gone.
Destroyed. Okay, like it had jumped in the house and then thank God
really
they got
fast. Here you're seeing the beginning of a few before and after shots of particular buildings or areas, how they looked immediately before and immediately after the fire.
Yeah, and then what absolute heartbreaking story of a couple that had known each other for 90 years, literally. One was 100, the other one was 98. The gentleman was a World War II hero, and he had lived through that. And they'd met each other when they were in grade school, got married, had lived together for all that time. He died trying to get her out of the fire, and they both died in the fire. So this is among the worst fire disasters in California history. In one area alone, the Tubbs wildfire in Sonoma County, in this particular incident, 11 were killed. That's the 6th deadliest fire in recorded California history. And our technology is a lot better than it used to be in terms of forecasting, in terms of being able to put out fires, and still it's one of the deadliest fires in history.
Yeah, you're seeing that about the outline of Hilton.
Wow, look at that, man. That is unbelievable.
And we talked just a couple of months ago. We covered some of the large, long-term wildfires that have been going on in, I believe it was up in the Northwest and getting towards there from the Midwest. And obviously these are devastating fires that destroy huge areas of land, often forests, and last a very long time. And those are still ongoing. Those are big problems in a lot of the parts of the country. Thankfully, some of those areas are relatively less populated, and so the death tolls tend to be lower, the number of buildings tend to be lower. I don't think that we have as much experience with densely populated areas experiencing fires of this sort, and I read a lot about why it was so devastating in this area. So partially it is the wind, but I mean, you don't think of Sonoma as being a place where, for its wind, that's a problem, but when an area that's relatively natural still, an area with grass or a little bit of bushes, a fire sweeps through, very often it'll consume the flammable material very quickly. Like with grass, it can literally take just a few seconds, and then the fire is effectively dead because there's no fuel anymore. But with man-made constructions like homes and other buildings, the fire doesn't burn through very quickly. It can stay for a long time, and combined with the winds, that provides embers to fly off of the burning material for 10 minutes or 20 minutes or an hour, meaning that it tends to spread in more directions around the initial area of the fire. And so, like we said, still ongoing. Maybe we can show a few more of these graphics. You're seeing the amount of smoke there.
So let me give a further context here. They woke up, we talked about 170,000 acres burned in California. They woke up this morning and it was 70,000 more. So it was 100 and then it was 170,000 in the morning, because it's literally spreading like wildfire. And so, and it just, the scope of the problem continues to shock people. It's now only 50 miles outside of San Francisco. So we're used to wildfires in areas that are sparsely populated, as John was mentioning. One of these days, that's not what's going to happen. What's going to happen is it's going to hit San Francisco or Los Angeles or another major city.
LA had that fire in the valley just a month ago.
Yeah, and by the way, it's in Orange County now.
Yeah.
But it hasn't hit a massively populated area yet, but it will.
Yeah, imagine the evacuation troubles that we're going to have in that case.
Yeah, in one of the counties, they evacuated 25,000 people, mandatory evacuation. They evacuated everybody, and they said, leave everything behind. We got to go right now, right? Now, evacuating 25,000 people is hard. Evacuating several million people is way, way harder. In LA, the county and the nearby areas has 14 million people in it. So, I mean, these disasters are of epic proportions. Quick clarification, I said it was a guy, it was actually a woman, Christina Hansen, who was 28 years old and in the wheelchair, that died in the fire, and the 100-year-old veteran of World War II was Charles Rippey, and his wife Sarah, who was 98. And then further scope for all of the West, 8 million acres have been burned this year alone. So in Montana, the fire raged for months and months and months. So we've talked about the wind, we've talked about the housing. Of course, the last part that is incredibly important is how dry it is.
Yeah.
And the droughts and the dry land is absolutely related to climate change. The warmer weather picks up the moisture from the ground and makes it much drier, which makes the fires more severe, longer lasting, and what you're seeing in front of you, the extreme devastation, is also because of climate change.
Yeah, I mean, we could go through the whole thing. We've had to do it so many times, and unfortunately, it looks like it's going to be even more next year and more the next time. Trying to get, especially Republican politicians, to understand that climate change is not the caricature that they want to make it out to be. That climate change can simultaneously cause in different parts of the world dry conditions and more rain, mudslides, hotter conditions and colder conditions. It can cause all of those things. The climate is changing fundamentally, extremely, and non-linearly. It's becoming worse now. That was one of the things actually on the documentary that it's great I do all the research and all that. But I was on a ship with the scientists trying to map why it is the ice is melting so much earlier and so much more than it used to. And they actually had some great data. This is not a thing where it's like, oh, the last 10 years have been bad, maybe the next 10 will be bad. We have no idea what the next 10 are gonna be like because it's not expanding in a way that we can easily map out. And so we're seeing the wildfires now. God only knows what story we'll be covering in 5 years in the Young Turks.
So John was just near the North Pole. It's the documentary he's referring to as True North, which is gonna be on Verizon Go 90 in a couple of months. And look, the right wing mocked the scientists with their data and science when they said, look, the major cities will be flooded. That's not gonna happen. And then during just Superstorm Sandy, New York's ground zero area was flooded. Then Houston, massive unprecedented flooding in Houston. And then when the scientists said you will have both droughts and flooding, you'll have great fires and storms. How could that possibly happen at the same time? Alarmist, ridiculous. We're living in it right now. It's exactly what they predicted. And it is fire and fury. And we have messed with Mother Nature and it's only gonna get worse. once the ice caps melt and the methane is released, methane is worse than carbon. If you thought this is bad, buckle up and brace for impact. Help us build independent media together. Come join us, tytnetwork.com/join.